Cool. A few words about me. My name is Ivelin Ivanov. I'm the EP at Lab 42. I've been in the industry roughly since 2002. Been through a lot. I started as a game designer. My first job in the industry was as a game designer, but even before that, I worked as a marketing manager for a big local games retailer. And before that, I wrote about games. So all of my professional life has been dedicated to games, and I never ever was in any doubt whether that was the right thing. So I worked as a producer, as a game director at some point, and also as creative director. And these are three of the games that probably the many games that I had the privilege and to work on, and also which were quite fun. One of them flopped, but still was quite fun to do. So these were some nice memories tied to that. So what is this talk all about? When I was first thinking about what kind of I'm picking a theme for the SDC talk, I didn't have a lot of hard time, because chasing value in general and how to do it has been always a special interest to me, because it's probably, as many of you, I was always wondering, how is it possible for such a talented teams with so many people with quite a decent budget to produce at the end something that they are not happy about? Something must have happened on the way. So right after that, I said, okay, cool, that sounds good. Also, thank you.
Just makes it better.
Yeah, I actually have started with the oldest joke in the history of all jokes, is this thing on. So yeah, I hope you can hear me, that's for sure. Anyway, so the whole idea formed in my head, chasing value. I'll talk a bit more about that makeshift term. There's no such term as evolutionary production management, and I'll tell you why. It's a bit of a clickbait. Anyway, and a couple of hours in, just trying to figure the whole thing, the skeleton of it, I just said, probably a bit more than I can chew. So I needed to concentrate on specific stuff that is really interesting. So right now there's a bit of a cherry picking going on there, because basically chasing value, anything about making games is about chasing value. So it's by no means, this talk is by no means do it by the numbers recipe on how to chase value, how to make a wonderful game, how not to. It's more about getting you interested, getting you excited about some ideas that have helped me before not to lose my way in the few things, in the few times that I managed to achieve that. Okay. So, yeah, let's start with a deceptively easy question. It's that just a few people that have asked that question have been capable of giving me a short answer. It's not, I can do that. You facilitate, you make people's lives easier, stuff like that. There's a short expose coming after that. And that special clip that we fought so hard to get it with a sound for you gives a very good answer, I think.
Yes.
I'm a planner. I make plans.
You've already made the plan, so
If the existing plan fails, I make a new plan.
you make plans that fail.
No,
He also plays the lute.
not relevant.
So what does a producer do? So we make plans, we plan makers. That's the good part. But we also make plans that fail, which is the scary part. But should they? That's a very interesting question. Another important thing that goes through the whole talk is that in general, there's a whole spectrum of what the producer could do at a different studio, but in general, we don't give answers, but we sure provide answers. And that's important to understand. None of the stuff that goes down there on the rest of the slides, you need to come up with that stuff by yourself. You just need to make sure that these answers, that whole thing is present, and also that is shared and understood properly by your team. So yeah, we make plans that fail, but it's okay to fail. Why is it? First of all, because things will change. Failing plans only mean that something has changed. And surprisingly, that's a good thing. First of all, because things indeed will change. And second of all, that only means that if we fail right, we just discovered a new piece of information that we didn't have before. So failing plans kind of give us the right feeling that we are going in the right direction. And the good thing is that there's this universal way of thinking called agile that is exactly about that. It's being able to respond to change, being able to improve. And as counterintuitive as it may sound, it's about gradually succeeding while constantly failing. But the important thing to understand that it's not always failing in the right way. You need to make sure that you're failing in the right way. Failing in the right way comes down to having a specific hypothesis, having a specific question, checking it out, and finding out that in this particular case, that's the right answer and not this one. So the road to that dream game of ours never looks like a straight line. It never looks like a highway. Most of the times, it looks like more like a mind map. You're constantly hitting different crossroads, and you cannot disregard any of these options. You need to test them. You need to find out. So if you can imagine that in your head, it's easy to get lost. It's quite easy. But just a few steps, exactly as in the first picture. A few moments later, a few bad decisions, you might get into the wrong branch. So how can we avoid that? Okay. Yeah, okay. So follow the value. That's the thing. So what we should do, what we should support our team with is exactly that. Being sure, making sure that we're following the value. There are different ways, there are different values that different teams appreciate, different teams follow, different teams take to heart. Three specific types have worked for me in the past. So that's why I'm going to share them with you. I'm constantly pressing the wrong button. Sorry about that. So the first one is business value. So what constitutes business value? Let's not leave it at make a profit. Of course, we need to be profitable. We need to be able to reproduce that to have this wonderful chance to make new games. That's about that. But in this particular case, what I mean is making sure that with this particular project, you're supporting your studio's long-term or mid-term plan. Make sure that it aligns with. Again, it's not about you finding out that what is your studio's long-term plan. It's about asking the right question. How can I support a long-term plan with this particular project? I'll get into a bit more details a bit later on that one. So the second one is the knowledge value. So Agile, apart from being about being able to respond to change, is also about being honest to yourself, being honest to your team. Just saying at the very start, well, we made some games before, we know how it goes in general. But at the start, just admitting to yourself and admitting to a team that we don't know how exactly it will go, it's really important. So instead of lying to ourselves, let's say we simply don't know. What do? At the very start of the production, we make sure that we prioritize stuff that would give us answers. But to have answers, we need to have the proper questions. And again, I'll come back to that a bit later. Prioritize knowledge, anything that could give you. There are basically two types of knowledge. One is the knowledge for the project itself, and the other one is the knowledge for the product. Both are very important. And the last one, the most probably important in a way, is the value for the user or the value for the game. What makes this game in particular exciting about for the user, for the gamers? Why should they be expecting it? So I'll go a bit back to the business value, and it comes back to the goal that is set up. Again, it's not for us to figure out the goal, it's for us to make sure that the goal is present, if possible, of course. And what might be the goal? It's possible that we've been working in this particular genre for years. We are well respected, we have a couple of good hits, stuff like that. but we want to get better. We want to expand what we already know that we can do. That's a very solid goal. Knowing that beforehand allows you definitely to help steering your production in the right way. Or maybe we'd like to get noticed. We've been doing all these racing games. We're a bit tired out of doing the same thing. And just now, we've been experimenting a bit with smaller projects. We've been doing some stuff on the side. And now we're ready to get noticed about, as the studio, being able to produce this particular game. Okay, let's do it. Or maybe we're exploring some new grounds. We want to say that, yeah, we're not exactly known for making simulation games or strategy games or turn-based tactical games, but we are very interested in doing that. We believe we have the right talent, right knowledge about it, and now is a good time to explore some new grounds. Understanding either of this, when you're covering more than one in that respect, will be tough. So I strongly advise having kind of sticking to one of these, whichever one is the most important right now. Yeah, and probably that's the core of it, the vision. So understanding that, again, don't get scared. It's not for you alone to decide what the vision is, but you surely need to make sure that the vision is in place, is properly fleshed out. The team shares it. The team is excited about it, because if the team is not excited about the vision, nobody will. For sure. Unexcited games are done by unexcited teams. That's what it is. So what constitutes the vision? So it always starts, in my opinion, with why. There's also the what, and there's also the who. So what is the why? So as any other product, and games, like it or not, are products as well, they need to answer certain need. They need to solve a certain problem. Well, the tricky question, the tricky answer is, what kind of a problem are we solving? Hopefully, not somebody needing to kill some time. Hopefully it's more than that. So in my opinion, the problem that will solve it, we are in the business of selling player fantasies. We are in the business of selling daydreaming. People are getting into games, they're playing games exactly for that, to experience something that the real life cannot provide for them. So understanding that player dream, I think, is more important. Having, again, a very solid and understanding that player dream is really, really important. And because it is exactly that, that comes, in my opinion, before the fun. All of us have heard many, many times, make it fun. Well, I read a few books on fun. None of these gave me a very straight answer of what is fun. It's very subjective. And let's not forget that we are not making a game for ourselves, not for the team. We are making for someone else. We're making for these people that will play. So the problem with fun is that, yes, when it's present, everybody knows that it's there. But how to go there, how to fix it, how to reach that. It's exactly through that, understanding the player vision that the player fantasy that we're selling. As for the what, it should definitely come second. Okay, we have, let's say that the player fantasy that we want to give to the players is to be this wonderful, amazing entrepreneur with new ideas that will change the world. Let's think of the best possible genre. Let's think about the best possible business model that will support that player fantasy. As for the who, of course, but again, let that come third. Just saying, okay, you can work with player personas, you can work with player types. There are many different ways of just finding out who would be the right person to share that. The problem with, in my experience, for instance, working with player personas and stuff, or getting too deep or getting too dependent on all of these structural ideas, is that they don't necessarily work 100%. You need to be careful about that, because Same game could be liked by people of different ages, different preferences, different background, different expectations, and so on and so forth. So the player fantasy, it's, again, it is at the core of, and probably one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen being made is just to mistake the player fantasy for the game designer. It's not that. It's, the game design is only there to support the player fantasy and not the other way, but they're definitely not the same thing. The player fantasy is exactly that, understanding what is this thing which is bigger than life. Having said that, by the way, some player fantasies could not look like something that's bigger than life. Like, for instance, should I play a game that puts me in the role of a producer? Probably not. But how about I am to produce a game that uses a budget with very shady sorts. So missing a milestone might be missing a finger, something like that. It gets slightly more interesting. So by bigger than life, I don't mean that you need to be a superhero. You need to be shifting mountains and stuff like that. It's not about that. It's about experiencing something that you cannot experience in real life, or just having a strange twist to it, just to make it, again, worth experiencing. And if someone asks, okay, cool, what about the multiplayer games? What kind of player fantasy are they offering? Of course they are. You'd like to feel more quick, more shrewd, more tactically thinking, you name it. It's more like, that's why exactly all the different successful multiplayer games have their own specific profile, which touches on so many things. So there's definitely a player fantasy to be shared with the multiplayer games as well. Another thing about the player fantasy is that needs to be focused. Within reason, of course, but don't try to cover too wide of a range. Just saying, okay, we'd like to be this Nobel Prize scientist who also is a vigilante, who's also a race driver, and does so many things. I mean, many of these things could be considered great or valuable or interesting to experience, but try to stay focused on something specific, because focus will only enhance the effect, will make the whole experience more desirable, more fulfilling. And of course, try to offer an original perspective. How many more Superman games can we have? Doing exactly the same. Like, for a good example might be the first Spider-Man game that came in. It basically mimicked the whole fighting system of the Arkham games, but it did it with a very interesting twist again. So it worked. So think about how to offer an original perspective to something. You don't have to be revolutionary or doing something new and never seen before, but have that original twist to it. I need to rush a bit. Okay, so of the many things, so vision, like anything else, is something that is alive and evolving and stuff like that. So we need to make sure that there are different tools that we need to use in order to stay on point, stay on course and stuff like that. If I need to pick one, that should be playtesting. So I'll quickly go through all these. Start early, be specific about your goals. Videotape or screen capture. I mean, one of the many things that I've learned with my time at doing free-to-play games was, don't ask people what they think about your game. See what they do. That's really important. So videotaping a play session might be much more informative than just simply dropping a questionnaire and just expecting people to answer it. And use analytics. So analytics are no longer a science fiction. I mean, for years, we have them out of the box. You don't need to go crazy. I mean, small stuff like session duration, or how often these sessions are happening, or what is the retention, how many people are playing on the second day or on the third day in a week time, stuff like that. That is really, really important and could give you a lot of interesting insights. And by the way, the reason why there was a portal screenshot on that is that Valve is notorious for testing games. They start as early as one in a week in. And there's a nice story to that. When the first time the portal was demo was shown to playtesters, they said, "That's great. That's absolutely fantastic. That's an amazing tutorial. Where's the game?" So all of a sudden, Valve understood that something's missing, and by just asking around, playtesting again, they said that, yeah, we're missing the villain. So that's how GLaDOS was born, and that totally changed the game and made it into one of the most successful and most well-done games in the history of well-done games. So going to the second part, the evolutionary part. As I said, there is no such term as evolutionary product management, production management. It's something that I shamelessly stole from extreme programming, which I'm about to talk about a bit more. Don't worry, I'm probably the least technically inclined person in the whole room, so there won't be much technical stuff in it. So what's the background of extreme programming and why is it interesting to us? It was first introduced in 1996 by a software engineer called Kent Beck. And it kind of became a big thing in the early 2000s and probably was the first really popular agile production methodology. Really good one. It started as a risk management thing because at that time everybody was fighting a bit with that general statement, quite true, that the software gets more expensive over time. Software development gets more expensive over time. So something needed to be done. So the first and logical step might be, yeah, just push the important stuff at the start, get done with it, and that will solve the problem. Probably not, because that also means that you should make all these premature decisions, just kind of lock the whole thing. And making games is about exploration. It's not about making those premature decisions. By the way, there's a lot of good stuff that we can learn from the business software development. And still remaining artistic and doing these wonderful interactive things and so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff. So what's the concept? What is evolutionary design? Not to drastically go over my time. Evolutionary design is about a modular system in which any of the components can be removed or changed at any time to improve the design, to change the performance, or to change certain feature. So the ideal version of that's impossible for sure to do. There will be always some sort of an overlapping. There will be some sort of a dependency, but as much as you can, ask that question and ask it again. Is our design an evolutionary design? Can we remove some of these parts? Can we change them at any point? Why? Because right now we have this hypothesis that got disproven, so we need to take not this branch, but that one. Why production? Because what evolutionary production management does, it supports evolutionary design. It makes evolutionary design is not so much a strict process. It's about a way of thinking. So your production should be structured exactly like that. You should be able just to remove stuff as you want to, freely, with few dependencies as possible. Yeah, one of the many reasons why I love Agile, and my production team knows that because they're quite tired of hearing that. But that's a great line. Just enough, just in time. It's really, really important. And it comes from extreme programming as well. And it comes from Agile. That's not something to do with any form of procrastination. It's about do not do stuff that we don't need right now. just develop just enough to allow you to get to the next crossroad and make the next important decision. And yeah, who doesn't love abbreviations? So that one, the YAGNI, goes to, you ain't gonna need it. It's exactly that. You ain't gonna need it. Make sure before you prioritize something for development that you actually need it, and you need it right now. Not because it's this amazing feature that needs to be in the game, but because that's the missing part to make it possible for you to make that next decision, to which branch to take. So about the game design, obviously, there's a bit of an overlapping. Evolutionary design. Again, we are not here to fix the design. We're not here to teach the designers how to design, but we are here to ask and ask again, how independent are the systems in that design? How free are we to experiment with that? Make improvements, change stuff as long as we can. Backlog, it goes to, again, just enough and just in time. Make sure this one falls directly on us. Please, if you can, don't do that endless sheet of hundreds and hundreds of tasks, simply because it looks like a job well done. It's not. You're lying to yourself again. I mean, it doesn't matter how many games of this type have we made. There are no two tasks that are exactly the same, so you don't know. There are no two tasks that take exactly the same amount of time. So go for a nice and neat backlog. Keep those big chunks that you don't have enough information for, keep them big, as long as you can. And planning, same. Just don't plan for stuff that you're not sure that you need now. Why? Again, you need it because a certain question needs to be answered. Very quickly for that one, because I'm eating up from all the time. So again, a single effective tool. Think about developing interiors. Don't go to fully realizing that feature simply because it's a really cool feature. It's aligned with our pillars. It's very important. People are going to like it. Don't do that. Just instead of that, figure out what is the tier that you're going for. What is the minimum initial implementation? Find the right increments. And deep playtest at least once a tier. I would suggest you should do it much more often than that, but at least once, do a proper playtest. Okay, so what's to be done? First of all, explore. I mean, getting rid of the exploration part, just having that overlong list, that pile of work that we need to do, only kills everything that's good and interesting about making games. Explore, open spaces for exploration. Don't rush for answers, because again, you'll be lying to yourself. Keep your list of questions updated and relevant. So again, we're not formulating those questions, but we want these questions to be present, and we want to make sure that the team indeed feels that these are the right questions to ask. Because, why? Because they kind of pave the way in front of us. Provide answers. Do not be tempted to give answers unless you are specifically tasked with that. Unless your format as a producer is exactly for that. Just be more on the creative side. But provide answers. Make sure that these answers are there, they're shared, they're properly understood. Keep the right course at all times. Follow the value. Decide which type of values is most important to you, but keep the course. And again, ask why this particular thing. Somebody's pushing for this particular feature. Yeah, cool. I see it. How does it align? What kind of a value does it support? And yeah, get everybody excited. I mean, I cannot stress enough how important it is. I mean, it's tough making games. So getting your team excited at least a bit, now and then, is really, really important, because otherwise, we don't need yet another stillborn game on the market. Keep the guys excited. Once people start being excited about stuff, don't use excuses for that. Just saying it's been a tough milestone. We've been, we don't have enough resources to do it. We don't know this. We don't have that tool. No, it's probably the first reason for that is that people are not excited about it. And thank you. Any questions? Jerry?
I'm going to be playing devil's advocate a bit here, but if you're just doing the backlog just in time and the planning just enough just in time, how do you ensure that you still deliver on time and to budget?
Okay. So it's, again, that shouldn't be used as an excuse for procrastination. It's not about that. It's more like figuring out the necessary horizon that you need to have in front of you and figuring out, just constantly working towards breaking down those big chunks, big unknowns on your backlog, understanding how to break them down. It's more like not do that, just push that into the future, but do that just in time when you're sure that you have enough information about this particular thing to understand it better, to break it down. Now is exactly the time to do it. So do it. Don't say, yeah, there are most important things right now. You have enough information, you feel confident about it, break it down. There is nothing bad about knowing a lot about your backlog. It's just bad when you just lie to yourself. You don't know enough and you do it prematurely. Okay, cool. Should I hold that? I don't think it's working.
Anyway. So obviously fully agree with all of this stuff. Amazing, lovely. How do you deal with stakeholders who want certainty? They want answers. How do you actually communicate that?
Well, there are a couple of ways to do that at least. So even if you keep your backlog big enough, and even if you work in relative estimation units, like for instance, story points, it's still possible because once you hit the proper sustainable velocity of your team, you should be very much able to answer those tough questions, like saying, okay, cool, I get it. When is it going to be done? Well, right now, that should take probably roughly about 2 months, stuff like that. So and at any point after achieving that stable velocity, should be able to know that, yes, we are right now on time and on budget. So it's not a problem. It's a problem when you can't achieve that velocity, but there is no shame in just saying, okay, cool. For some reason, I've been working with teams that work quite well with story points and some teams that don't like it at all, which doesn't mean that they're bad teams. It's just like it's not for them. Just be realistic about it. Yeah.
Cool. This is a bit of a loaded question because it's related to a project that we worked on last year.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to kind of pick your brain.
Cool.
You said that vision is kind of super important, as it is. When we're working with clients, as lots of us do, if we have a client that is either struggling to express their vision or we're trying to chase a specific aspect of that vision for, say, an artist or a designer, do you have any tips or tricks on how to kind of persuade a client to kind of give us the relevant and correct information to kind of help keep the team motivated in that scenario?
I feel your pain because it's tough. It's really tough. You cannot extract the vision from a vision holder who's not able to do it, or for some reason doesn't want to do it. All you can do is just try to support them, just have those conversations. If at some point you just hit a brick wall and not getting some information back, there's not much that you can do. But front load all of these important questions and kind of making sure that you're sharing the same understanding towards the start of the project and not just saying, okay, we'll get to that at some point. It is really important because it's rather, some people need time. Some people are calling the same thing in a different way. But yeah, they need to understand what the role of the vision holder is. And maybe they can give you their own version of the vision. Maybe they call it in a different way, but they need to understand what their role is. If they don't want to play it, there's nothing much for you to do. And it's really hard.
Thank you.
more questions? Yeah, Oli?
Thank you, Evelyn. It was a good talk. I think my question is probably two parts. Sorry. You mentioned earlier on in the slides that most people have a difficulty to have one single explanation for what a producer does. I think that does filter down into teams. So I guess my question is, how do you communicate what a producer does to a team that has different opinions? And also, is it to the, so for example, I'm an associate producer, is it up to me to educate the team? Or is it up to people higher up to educate the studio on what their group policy of that is?
Well, the answer is both. It just happens at different times. So once you're in the project, it's definitely the biggest part of that task falls on you. You just need to, well, tempt them more. I wouldn't say educate, because people don't want to, we are all clever guys, so we don't like to be educated, but tempt them, just saying, guys, I have this particular idea about how we should do it. Always try, you know how we start our talks most of the time, our internal talks, you just saying, there's the concept, try to destroy it. Because if you can't destroy a concept, it will be never yours. So that's the first thing, just saying, guys, I feel that it will be beneficial for all of us to plan in this particular way. Give them all the details, let them ask all the tough questions, and let them destroy it, or even encourage them to do that. If they can't, that will at least get them thinking. There might be something solid here. Why not try it? And support them in that. Just be there, be patient, and again, once they feel that there is a benefit for them, because if there isn't, all of your ideas are just bullshit. So you shouldn't push for that. But kind of tempt them first. Be very patient. As for the rest of it, yes, definitely the higher management needs to support you in that. Just saying, our general values when it comes to how we make games need to be like that. And there's also, this is where the core responsibilities of a producer start and end. That needs to be shared. And that happens all the time and mostly between projects and stuff. Yeah. Jesus. Sorry about taking too much of your time, guys. Any other questions? If there are none, I'll happily leave it to the rest of the day. And thanks a lot.